And welcome back to MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. It is late on a Monday evening, Home Run Derby wrapping up anyway, and we are less than 3-ish weeks anyway away from the MLB trade deadline. All-Star break is here. Teams are finally sorting themselves out as to whether they're going to be buyers or sellers. We've been building some trades with you guys for the past week or so. We're going to finish up that series, and then we're going to get into what the perfect trade deadline and end to the season looks like for all 30 ball clubs. But we'll start primarily with the contenders and kind of go from there. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll dig into some of the transactions we've already seen over the last couple of days as well. And we'll get into some of the news and rumors that are out there for you guys. Make sure you guys follow us over on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Appreciate those of you who have been with us from the very beginning. We do not forget about you guys. You guys are a big part of the reason why we are still here. So we appreciate all the support you guys have given us. So without further ado, let's get into our MLB trade deadline special. Alrighty, so one thing I haven't really touched on yet anyway is the top prospects for each team. Usually when you get a big blockbuster, say there's a big, a high leverage piece that's on the trade deadline or trade market anyway, and a team wants to get a premium asset for them. They usually want to get one, maybe two top 100 pieces. Very rarely do you see a player ever traded for more than that at the deadline. The special cases would have to be in guys like Juan Soto, among others. Big-time aircraft carrier type players moved at the trade deadline that especially have some term left on their deal. Those players are going to command a hefty return. I think back to all those years ago where Cole Hamels was dealt to the Texas Rangers as they tried to hold on at the very end of their contention window, say 10 years ago now. Cole Hamels was dealt from the Philadelphia Phillies to the Texas Rangers. And the Rangers, I believe, gave up, 3 top 100 guys, 2 more borderline guys. And ultimately, the trade worked, at least for that term, that short-term period. But it was the end of Cole Hamels, really. The final 3-ish plus years of Cole Hamels in Texas were his last real viable years in Major League Baseball. latched on with the Dodgers and I believe the Braves at one point, and but his final run was really with the Texas Rangers as they tried to stave off, uh, their championship window closing. Ultimately, they didn't win a championship back then, but they finally won their first championship this past year, and they're looking to repeat. So, if they were going to do so, some of the premium assets that they would have to possibly be able to trade here at the deadline, you would find on this prospect ranking list. For instance, if the Rangers wanted to do something big here, you could look at Sebastian Walcott if they wanted to do something really big. I don't think they would have any motivation to move him, especially when you consider how young he is and how good he looked in that Futures game and in the skills competition. They also have some good starting pitching coming. They've had significant injuries in the minor leagues as far as the pitching side goes and at the major league level. I'm not sure they'd want to deal from that talent pool right now just because of all the injuries, but they do have some other talent that's not listed on this prospect ranking list anyway that they could deal. Players who've already graduated from this list, Evan Carter, Ezekiel Duran, among others, that could be moved. Heck, if they decide to sell at the deadline, they could move guys that are on one-year deals, Michael Lorenzen, etc. I'm still not of the mind that if they, even if the Rangers decided to buy at the deadline, I'm still not sure that precludes them from selling off some pieces in order to create room on the active roster as well as on the 40-man. For instance, Michael Lorenzen probably pencils in as a number 4 or 5 starter when this rotation is fully healthy. If they parlay him to, say, a elite closer or part of a 3-team trade to bring in a dominant relief arm at the deadline, that would be something I could see the Rangers doing, both buying and selling a little bit there. Welcome in, Vinny. Any moves for the Mets? Well, if you ask Brendan Nimmo, he said he wants the Mets to go all out this year. He wants them to cash all their chips in and really make a charge for the World Series. You're also in a division with the Philadelphia Phillies, arguably, okay, I'll take it back. The best Major League Baseball team so far this season has been the Philadelphia Phillies, period, full stop. They are that good this year. Their rotation has been fantastic. Their lineup could use a minor upgrade, and I mean a minor one in center field. Outside of that, they're a really good team who could use a bullpen arm, but other than that, they're a really well-constructed team, and as long as they stay healthy, as long as they get, keep those arms fresh for the postseason, they look like the team to beat on the National League side. You're also in a division with the Atlanta Braves, who are down Spencer Strider, they're down Ronald Acuna. Those guys eventually, of course, will be back next year, but Max Fried's free agency, this might be the last chance they really have with him on this club. But the rest of that team is locked in, and they're going to be around for a long period of time. I bring both of those teams up for you, Vinny, because the Mets, while they're having a nice run here to get into wild card contention, if you get into a series with either of those two teams, right now, as things currently stand, I don't think you beat either one of them. That's not to say, you couldn't surprise somebody, but the Phillies are just that good this year. Braves, they just have that pedigree. I would worry about how thin they are if they have another big-time injury. Then you look at the rest of the NL side. You got the Dodgers still to contend with. I think the Padres ultimately are going to be there. The Brewers. I think you're probably the 6th or 7th best team as currently constructed. Now, to your comment there, any moves for the Mets, I could see them adding here at the deadline, but I don't see them adding any impact pieces. We're not talking about a Juan Soto type trade here at the deadline for the Mets. If they do something, maybe we're looking at a bullpen piece. Their bullpen's been a little rocky here and there. Maybe they go for another addition to their lineups, get some more consistent at-bats in that lineup there. Some of their veterans haven't worked out towards the back end of that lineup anyway. But for the Mets, you got to worry about Pete Alonso and his future with the Mets. You got to worry about what they're going to do this offseason to bring in top-end talent like Juan Soto, among others. Do you cash in those young prospects that are going to allow you, to really go out there and spend on those top-level free agents by trading them now and bringing in somebody else who's going to cost even more money? I mean, Steve Cohen seems to have anyway, just endless pockets to be able to spend and spend and spend, but everybody has a stopping point at some point, and at a certain point, you got to see a negative return on investment. And so for the Mets, I know they would love to have some of that young talent and be homegrown, be a team on the field that consists of actual Mets players, not just a mercenary squad. We've seen that before. Other teams have really tried to do that mercenary type thing. The Padres did that twice now under A.J. Preller. Both times it blew up in his face, but he was able to rebound nicely in the second and third year afterward. but I'm not sure that the Mets would be best served by going with a mercenary squad. So to answer your question, Vinny, small moves, maybe a bullpen piece, maybe a back end lineup or a fourth outfielder type player. But other than that, we're not talking about a front of the rotation starter for them. We're not talking about, Vlad Guerrero coming in there and playing third base for them or anything like that. I think they're pretty much going to be the team they are right now. And then they'll hit free agency this offseason and really try to retool both that lineup and that rotation. So keep your eyes peeled, Vinny. We shall see where the Mets ultimately end up. We went over our contender series. Let me get this popped up anyway about where teams stood going into the All-Star break anyway. Each division anyway had two teams that we considered contenders. On the AL side, we went over the Orioles and Yankees, Guardians and Twins, and then in the AL West, we kind of gave you three because the Texas Rangers had closed that gap now to 5 in the AL West, and they are certainly getting healthier. The Mariners are certainly scuffling right now. Astros losing 2 of 3 at home to the Texas Rangers going into the break. They had been one of baseball's best teams. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Rangers 7-3 in their last 10. But should be a very interesting race all the way to the finish in the AL West. On the NL side, we looked at the NL East. The top 2 teams were real contenders. Phillies and Braves. Like I said, I think the Phillies are just far and away the best team right now in baseball. They are, 28 games above 500. Braves, as I mentioned, 11 games up above 500 anyway, but 8.5 back in the division, and they're paper thin right now. They need some depth at the trade deadline, and we should see something similar to the World Series championship year that the Braves had, where they acquired a bunch of quantity just to kind of fill in gaps here and there, allow the manager to kind of plug and play players as he saw fit. I could see the exact same thing happening with the Braves, and if they do that, maybe they catch lightning in a bottle in a second time and win another championship while Acuna is on the bench. NL Central, that's where we're going to start today anyway. We'll go quickly through this one, primarily because the Brewers, I think, have already done part of their shopping here, bringing in Savali. And then the Cardinals are the other team that's a contender in this division. Love the Paul Skeens story for the Pittsburgh Pirates, but they're a year ahead of being a real contender in that division. 6.5 back, but I really like the Cardinals to kind of finish this one out strong. Brewers have lost 7 of their last 10. Seems to be hitting a little bit of a rough patch. They need some arms there. Devin Williams should be back. And give them some reinforcements soon. NL West, Dodgers and Diamondbacks currently at the top 2 teams there along with the Padres. Diamondbacks have really turned it on as of late, and they look like a team that's going to be at least a wild card contender. I'm not sure they have another Cinderella run in them to make it to the World Series, but hey, we just saw them do so last year when nobody gave them a real chance to do so. Now, this is a different year. The Dodgers certainly are trying to compete harder than they did last year. Last year, they were trying to save money, reset their tax clock, all those kinds of things to bring in Shohei, Yamamoto, among others. And they did so, and they got all the pieces that they wanted in free agency. This is the year the Dodgers, I believe, push their chips to the center more than they have in the past. I think they look at the Phillies and say, hey, that team is absolutely great, but this is our time. This is where we're supposed to be trying to capitalize. We promised Shohei a chance to compete in the postseason and to try to win a World Series. We're not just going to settle with getting into the tournament. We want to win the whole thing, and so I think the Dodgers might be a big-time buyer here at the deadline. I would expect them to try to add a rotation piece. They've lost a couple of pitchers now due to injury. They're very thin already in that area. I thought they added some nice arms to that rotation coming into the year. Yamamoto's now on the IL. Dustin May is out. Buehler's still recovering from injury. You're not sure what you're going to get out of Kershaw down the stretch here as well. There's some reason to be cautious if you are the Dodgers fan base right now because of how wobbly that pitching staff has become over the years. Padres, nobody thought they would be, top of this division going into the year. We knew they'd be a team that'd be around wild card contention, but boy, did they decide to buy after selling off Juan Soto. They bring in Luis Arraez, they bring in Dylan Cease. They look really good in that NL West. I would expect them to get one of those wild card spots before it's all said and done. I think they've already done their big-time trades, though. I think they could add one more bullpen piece just to kind of polish things off. Diamondbacks, we've touched on to Jordan Montgomery, possibly trading him to get off of that money. Kind of a buy and sell if they decide to add somebody else to that rotation or to that bullpen. Maybe a fourth outfielder like Tommy Pham last year. That could all be in the works. And then for the Giants, they're 3 games back of the wild card, 9 in the division. This is a team I'm not expecting to compete for the championship. I'm not expecting them to compete for the head of this division. I'm not expecting them to ultimately win a wild card. And so Like I told you guys many times coming into the year, even before we ended up in free agency this past offseason, I told you if Farhan Zaidi would not be around after the trade deadline this year, I am still of the mind that will happen. But we shall see, getting closer to the deadline. So, we mentioned that we were going to finish off our series that we had started at the middle part of last week. We're going to go with the NL Central, quickly go through the Brewers, Cardinals, and then the NL West, Dodgers, Padres, and Diamondbacks. Kind of make you some quick trades here. For the Brewers, let's go ahead and go over to our baseball trade value site. We're going to go to trade boards and just see what the team or what you guys are proposing out there for what the Brewers could add. Jack Flaherty, he's a name that's been tossed around quite a bit. I could see that type of a deal happening. That would be a good fit, I believe, for them. Bednar, a closer, I don't really see that happening. I do like the Flaherty idea, so that'd be one option we're going to kind of look at here. Tarek Skubal, I think the price is too high for any team to acquire him right now. Jake Berger makes some sense along with Jesus Luzardo. Really like this deal here. Not sure I really like the package going out, but I do like the package coming in. Adames going out. Jackson Holiday, no, that's not happening. Eric Fetty, that's another one that makes some sense. Has a year left after this year. Could be a nice piece there. Sal Frelick, giving the Guardians a young outfielder. They do need that. Hunter Gaddis coming back the other way. I don't know about that one. Basabe Eflin gives them some starting pitching. For Cuero, I don't know if the Rays would do that. Fetty for Mitchell and pieces. That's pretty close. Devin Williams going out. They're not going to sell on Devin Williams. At least not for that package anyway. Chafin, Carson Kelly for a comp pick and a low or medium level prospect. We'll go one more page here just to kind of finish off the Brewers. Everybody seems to really like the Tigers as a trade partner for them. Nationals make some sense bringing in a guy like Kyle Finnegan, but they need starting pitching in my mind. The Mets, I don't think are going to trade Severino. Eric Haas going back to the Tigers, okay. Michael Grove from the Dodgers, Gavin Lux for Willie Adames. If they don't think they can re-sign him, makes some sense. I just don't think that's the trade that's going to happen here, though. Paul Sewald not getting moved. I don't really see too many options here other than maybe this one for the Rangers if they decide to move off of one of their starting pitchers. Kirby Yates ain't going nowhere with the Rangers still in contention. But that would be an interesting type of a move there for them to get one of those starters. There's the Savali trade. Okay. Let's go into our simulator here and just see what we can build for the Brewers. We'll get to the Cardinals here in just a second, and then the Dodgers. I really like the Tigers as a trade partner here, just like all of you out there. So let's see what we could do. Tigers here, we're going to look at the major league level. We're going to look at some starters first. We're going to look at surplus and just see who's got the ridiculous surplus right now. Tarek Skubal, as we mentioned off the top, ridiculously high right now. Nobody's going to be able to meet that price right now, and I don't think the Tigers would move him even if they did. Casey Mize, maybe. Has some big-time talent anyway, but hasn't lived up to it nearly as well as, say, a guy like Skubal this year. Vierling has 3 years left. We want to look at some starters. Flaherty's on a one-year deal. He's going to be expiring this year. He would be the piece I would look for if I'm the Brew Crew. Possibly extend him. Let's go ahead and put him to the Brewers. And they need some arms. So who else could be an arm that they could use? Ibanez seems to be their type of player as well. I loved him with the Rangers. Gio Urshela, kind of a do-it-all player. Both of those players are very similar. Let's go ahead and put Urshela in this deal. And then we're going to look at the negative surplus players. Javi Baez, worst contract in all of baseball. Kenta Maeda really hasn't worked out this year. They moved him to the bullpen recently. Mark Canha on a one-year deal. Played with the Brewers anyway last year. Not seeing that as a real option. Joey Wentz. Not really moving the needle. Velade just hit a home run for the first one in his major league career the other day. Chafin as a reliever, expiring deal. Mason Englert, by the way, really nice pickup for the Tigers from the Rangers as a Rule 5 guy. All right, so let's go ahead and throw Chafin in here. So, kind of to build out your roster here, if you're the Milwaukee Brewers, you get a really nice starter in Jack Flaherty. You get a couple of nice utility type arm slash an arm for your bullpen anyway in Chafin, and then you add Urshela to kind of be your plug and play all over the diamond type player for you. Now, for the Brewers, what could they give up here? If I'm the Tigers, I want somebody of some at least moderate talent. I don't want to necessarily have a bulk package coming back, so I want some decent talent coming back my way. Gasser makes some sense at the major league level, but I don't know about that one. Pratt in the minors makes some sense. They have a lot of outfield talent coming. If they wanted to save on a little bit of that talent, they could. I don't think they'd move Pratt because they're not sure of their future with Adames, at least yet, until they sign a long-term deal. So we're not going to include him. Let's go ahead. We'll put Rodriguez since he's so young. I like the age, 18 here. And then Brett here makes some sense as well. And then a lower level prospect just to kind of round it out. Blaylock, Jorge Quintana, a young shortstop that you can dream on. There you go. Pretty good deal. Validate the trade. Post it. In case you guys want to see all the other trades we did make, you guys can check out the baseballtradevalues.com site. And, oops. There we go. And check out some of the trades. You'll see it Upside Sports Network in the comments. There we go. We'll go through some of our trades that we posted here. Welcome back, Sarah. Can we do a Cardinals trade? Yes, they are the next team we are going to do. Let's go over to the trade boards. We're going to look at the Cardinals and just see what the community out there is posting. See what's available for them. Kikuchi from the Blue Jays. Not bad. Rooker. Not sure how much that solves the problems for the Cardinals this year. Donovan out in exchange for Chandler, Canzone, and Evans. I don't like that. Rooker again. I don't know about that one. I like the idea of a Garrett Crochet coming in. They need a long-term front of that rotation starter. Crochet could be that guy, but I think he's more like your number 2 or number 3 because of how little of track record of success he has right now. But he really does seem like he could be an ace of a staff, or at least close to it. Don't necessarily like what you're giving up there, but you got to give to get. You're not trading away Nolan Arenado. Flaherty makes some sense. Jazz Chisholm coming in, not buying that. Jazz Chisholm, no. I do like Eric Fetty quite a bit. He's the typical Cardinals type of target that they usually seem to go for. You think of Mikolas. I keep forgetting how to pronounce his name. Mikolas, there we go. It's been a very long day. Miles Mikolas, when he first came in, this is the type of pitcher that fits the Cardinals as to what type of pitcher they target. Lance Lynn on the back nine, Kyle Gibson, etc. Guys that have some really high talent that have shown it in the past that either A, are on the downside or have some negative detractors, or there's not enough time or not enough of resume to really project upon. But Fetty seems to fit that next Cardinals type of pitcher. He might be the guy we go after here at the deadline. He's got another year left of control here as well. Moderate cost. I like Eflin here as well. Bobby Miller for Lars Nootbaar, maybe. Anderson, I think it was you that was posting Tyler Anderson as well. I'm not sure if the Angels are going to move him, but I think they will at least go all the way down to the deadline for it. I don't think there's any world in the way this happens here. The Eric Fetty, Luis Robert, Tommy Edmonds not getting traded. Estevez and Pilar, we've already done that one before with another team. I like Eflin. Quintana from the Mets, not going to make sense there. Crochet, Chisholm, Robert, Sears anyway. That'd be another one that could make some sense from the A's, but I'm just not sure why the A's would do that trade. Rooker. Finnegan makes some sense. Lane Thomas does not. Kopech, meh. Marte, no. Stanton, no. Alonso could. Dominguez, that would be an insane trade. Not going to happen, though. Singer from the Royals, I don't think that would happen either. I do like the idea of an Eflin trade. I'm kind of leaning towards the White Sox, though. Eovaldi, if the Rangers sell, makes some sense. We'll do one more page here because I know we got a few Cardinals fans with us. Kikuchi. Quantrill does make some sense. Mason Miller for Ryan Helsley and Sonny Gray. And Jordan Walker? No. Shelby Miller. Lorenzen. We mentioned that Lorenzen could be on the way out from Texas anyway at the deadline, just from a roster crunch standpoint. Eflin and Rooker would be good. I'm just not sure how Rooker would fit on the Cardinals. I'm not sure. To me, it's kind of the problem you guys had with O'Neill if you bring in Rooker. Too many guys for too few spots, and sure, you'd rather have too much talent than too little, but I mean, if I'm making a trade, I'm expecting that bat to be in there every day, and sure, Rooker probably would be in there, 3 out of 5 days, but I want a guy that's going to be in there 5 out of 5, especially for what the price of Rooker is going to be. All right, let's go ahead and build this trade real quick. We're going to go ahead and do... Let's get the Cardinals in here first. And I really like what the White Sox could possibly have for the Cardinals. So let's go ahead and just see what they have in store. Fetty has some really nice potential here. Another year left on his deal. I do like that option there. I'm not sure he would be the lone target I would try to get if I'm the Cardinals, though. I would try to add another piece or two just to kind of round out my team. Julks makes a little bit of sense, not a whole lot, though. Clevenger hasn't really pitched all that well. Pham as a fourth outfielder, again, too many players, too few spots. Vaughn could make some sense. I like the idea of Chris Flexen, though, as another piece coming in. Not that he's going to be anybody that, turns the tide for the Cardinals as far as their hopes to making the World Series or anything, but I do think he gives themselves another option there to really work into that rotation or into that long relief role in that bullpen. I would like both of those players if I am the St. Louis Cardinals. Corey Knebel. Nobody else here really moving the needle for me. Robbie Grossman's already off the team. Kopech. I'm just not sure there'd be a great piece for you guys there. I'm absolutely right there with you, Sarah. I think Weatherholt's going to be fantastic for you guys. I think he's probably on the big league club as soon as next year for you guys, if things work out. Just really like that bat. I think it will play. I think more than likely though he's probably 2 years away, but I think there's a pathway where we could see him in a big league uniform end of next year. Maldonado as a defensive catcher makes a lot of sense to me here. I'm going to go ahead and throw Maldonado in there. And the primary reason being is because they are, at times, still unhappy with Contreras' defense. I think they would be satisfied to bring in a guy like Martin Maldonado to handle the pitching staff. If, for instance, the bat of Contreras doesn't hold up as you get down to September baseball and into October, then you can go with a guy who doesn't necessarily play great with the bat, but can handle your pitching staff and get those guys to perform a little bit better. I think that could be a great piece for you guys. So let's go ahead and build the trade around those pieces there. Oh, let me get Fetty in here. Oh, too far down. Should I throw in Crochet and just see how crazy we can get? I don't think you're getting both. Let's be adventurous. Let's make this thing a little bit more exciting. Let's say the Cardinals get Crochet. All right. What's it going to get you guys? Garrett Crochet, probably your number 2 or 3 in the postseason rotation. Flex and a good arm for the back end of that rotation or bullpen. And a backup catcher in Maldonado. Value 57.6. Keep that in mind as we look at the Cardinals roster here. Mason Wynn, by the way, has been absolutely fantastic for the Cardinals. He is so good. Yeah, way better than I thought he would be at this stage of his career. 22 years old. Sky's the limit for that guy. I'm really excited to see where he's at in a year from now. And he's already very, very, very good. All right, so you don't really want to mortgage anybody off of the Major League roster. And for the White Sox, they're trying to build for the future. So they're trying to add some top-end talent. They have acquired a couple of catchers already. I'm not sure how big of an incentive Herrera would be to acquire via trade. I'm not sure they would want Hence as well. I would give Herrera, Sarah, but they've already acquired a couple of catchers that they're dreaming on. They're already set in their catcher group, if you will, as far as how they're developing right now. Otherwise, I think that would be a great fit. I think Walker is probably the centerpiece of a trade for Herrera. I really like Jordan Walker. Has seen his value diminish a little bit. Probably the lowest his value has been is probably right about now. But you look at where this Cardinals team is going and the players that they already have on this roster, Walker just doesn't fit the timeline of the group they have right now. He's got 5.5 years left to control, so of course he's still young and could fit in the long-term future of this team. But if you're looking for a frontline or top of the rotation starter, you're going to have to give to get. And I really like the idea of Jordan Walker catching the eye of the White Sox to entice them to at least talk turkey about what else you might give up here to get a trade done. Matthews probably going to have to go in this deal as well. Either that or another high-end pitching prospect. I like Roby quite a bit, but you're going to have to start giving up some decent pieces here. I'm just not sure Herrera really fits. And that might be the bugaboo about the Cardinals getting a top-end piece here from the White Sox, is that the White Sox have already invested in the catcher position via trade. Do they do it again here with Herrera? Put him on the Major League roster right now in place of Maldonado and say, hey, see what you got, roll him out and go. And then develop those other catchers in the minors. And if those other catchers hit, maybe they end up trading those guys. Edman, you're saying possibly we could move here? We have to put in Herrera. I'm not happy with this, but we're going to go ahead and put in Herrera in this deal. We're at 39 right now. I think you're going to have to include a couple of pitchers at least. Roby is one of them since he's close to the majors already. I'd say you have to include another starter here. Possibly a younger one, if I can find one. Those are all way too low value. Need about 10 more value here in order for this to get close. Roby. Libertor could make some sense here. Another guy to fit into that rotation. Let's go ahead and do that. Just to see how close we are. We're 2 over. You could probably take out one of those 2 starting pitchers at the very end there. And maybe go with a lower level prospect. You're headlining the package with Walker. What do you think, Sarah? This is the trade. If you're a Cardinals fan, do you do this? I think if I'm a Cardinals fan, I do this in a heartbeat. If I'm the Cardinals, I want somebody else other than Herrera as the second banana in this trade. I would probably clamor for Hentz. But if push comes to shove and this is the best package, maybe the quantity that the White Sox are offering here over what another team like the Dodgers could be offering for Crochet. I just think the White Sox are getting a little shortchanged. I know the value here shows 59 for the White Sox, 57 for the Cardinals. I still think the Cardinals are getting the better end of this one. They're getting the front-end pitcher. Walker does have some significant talent. Let's take out Herrera. Would you do it with Hentz in the package? If the White Sox pounded the table and said, hey, we will not do this for the package you are offering. We need Walker, Hentz, Roby, and then we'll go after, maybe some lower level guys to round out the package. Would you do this package, Sarah? I kind of like this trade a little bit better if I'm the White Sox. I'm getting a starter I can dream on. I'm getting a position player who's going to be in my lineup the day after this trade to show my fans some progress, what the next era of White Sox baseball could look like. He's the type of player that reminds me a lot of this current group of White Sox, how they thought they would be contending. They really went out and tried to invest in their minor leagues and then spent in free agency, and it ultimately fell flat. Poor performance, injuries, what have you. And now they're one of the worst teams in the American League this year, and they have been the last couple of years due to poor performance. You like Hentz, but if we get Crochet, I'm all for it. Okay, so it would hurt, but you're saying you would do it, is what you're trying to say, Sarah. Okay. So that to me tells me we found more of a balance here in a trade. If it hurts a little bit when you're giving up this deal, if you're a Cardinals fan, but you still feel like you're getting the best player out of it in Crochet, and you still got the contract and his longevity that's going to be there for you, you really don't have any young frontline starters in your rotation or anybody really coming outside of Hentz. And I think this really does give you somebody at the major league level that could make a difference. Let's go ahead and post this trade. Validate trade. Post to trade board. Submit. Alrighty. As I mentioned, we were going to go through the rest of the top end contenders in the NL side and just kind of round out our discussion there, and then go over one team anyway as to what the perfect trade deadline and end of season would look like for them. We'll get into that in a moment, but let's finish off our NL West. Walker hasn't doing well in AAA this year either. That's why I think you'd have to give up Hentz to get the deal done. All right. Let's see here. Dodgers. What are teams wanting to do for the Dodgers? Well, as I mentioned, they need some starting pitching as far as I'm concerned. They could use a bullpen arm as well, and maybe a back-end bat. Somebody who could be a position flexibility type of player like a Gio Urshela that we just made a trade for. But to me, this is all about making it to the World Series. If it's just a penny ante trade, to me, the Dodgers, while they might do one or two of those type of trades, it's not really going to push them over the top. They're the team that invests, they trade, they go after, they make big swings, and so I think this is the year they make another big swing. They have the catching prospects to really do it, so we'll see. But Nico Horner to me does not really fit. Crochet, that's the one player I think the Cardinals would be hard pressed with the Dodgers in the same market for him. Could really work out there for the Dodgers getting after Garrett Crochet. Tigers, Tarek Skubal in a Cy Young type of season. I just don't think they're going to move him. I could be wrong. I think they'd have to be absolutely blown away. Maybe like 3 top 100 guys and a couple borderline, like we talked about with Cole Hamels trade, etc. But I don't think you're going to get that right now in this market for a Tarek Skubal. So we'll go ahead and move on from him. You like that for the Dodgers getting Mason Miller and Rooker? I do like that one as well. They need a bullpen arm, and Mason Miller has been that good swing and miss stuff this year. Rooker would help lengthen out their lineup. I do like that one. I'm with you on that one. But for me, I want to look for a starter first. I do like the idea of going to the A's for Miller or Rooker. I think they're the one team that might go out there and shell out for a guy like Mason Miller, where other clubs might be a little bit more leery about the small sample size, the injury issues, those types of things. But I'm looking mainly for starter at the moment. Cartaya going out the other way, Rosarena, Perez, Clay Holmes, never going to happen. Tanner Scott makes some sense. James Outman going out the other way does not. Rengifo makes a little bit of sense. Paredes makes a lot of sense as far as a third baseman. But I'm still looking for a starter. I think they need a frontline starter at the top of this rotation. And I know they added Glasnow. I know they added Yamamoto. I know they added Ohtani. Yamamoto's out on the 60-day IL. Bobby Miller's injured. Kershaw, Buehler, May. All of those guys have red flags right now in that starting staff. And so I'm looking for a starting pitcher. Let me flip the screen over real quick to the top 50 trade deadline candidates here. Flaherty is on their list as far as starters. Crochet is up there as well. Just looking at other starters here who might be of interest. I don't think any of those starters, besides maybe Eflin, might make some sense for them. Blue Jays are going to have to sell this year. Harvey was already moved. I just don't see anybody that's going to move the needle yet. Looking for a starting pitcher. Quantrill ain't going to do it. Think frontline starter here. None of these guys are really fitting that mold this year. Anderson from the Angels could be the one piece that works. Primarily because he was with the Dodgers when he found his level of success. Familiar with the training staff, familiar with the coaches, familiar with how the front office does things, familiar with how they try to translate the numbers to the field. He's already been there, he's already done it, and shown that he's able to succeed not only there, but also now that he's moved on to the Angels, that he was able to replicate that. So Anderson might make some sense here. Canning, Bo Bichette is a shortstop option. Would be fantastic if he was actually performing. Others to keep of interest. I don't see anybody here that really jumps out to me at all. Lorenzen, Heaney, not really moving the needle if you're the Dodgers. Injured list targets. Luzardo, Maley, Montgomery. Montgomery could be of interest to the Dodgers. Same reason for the Rangers that I mentioned over a couple of different videos with you guys, is that they have the wherewithal to take on the money of a Montgomery. He showed last year that he can pitch in a pennant race, and got off to a really poor start this year. And I think he would be a change of scenery candidate. But I'm with you there, Sarah. I think Anderson probably is the piece here. So let's try to build a trade here for the Dodgers. The question is, would the Diamondbacks let the Dodgers have Montgomery, let him fix him, and then, hey, Montgomery beats him for a second time in a postseason series? I don't know if the Diamondbacks front office could live with that one. All right, Dodgers here. I do want to look at one other team real quick, and that's the Blue Jays. I want to look at their Major League roster real quick. One player I think that's been overlooked at the deadline, and I think after his poor performance in his most recent start, it kind of quells the rumors even for me. But one guy I would have interest in if I was looking at the Blue Jays would be a guy like Jose Barrios. He's got significant money left on that deal, but he is locked up long term. 4 years left after this year, and while that contract is a bit of an albatross, he would be a piece that's got a live arm that if you can just get him to hone in on a couple of things. One, limiting the home run, and two, getting him to focus in on some of those at-bats where he's 0-2 and he thinks he's got it won, and then he just gives away the at-bat by throwing 4 straight balls. I think for Jose Barrios, that'd be the next step in his development, is limiting those home runs. But look at the value there. -39. You're going to have to eat some of that salary. Blue Jays are entering a period where they're not going to be too competitive. Bassett does make some sense here. But you think about what the Dodgers are able to do. They will probably be able to buy any of these buy low candidates if they see them as an improvement to their team. Barrios does have some pretty good health on his track record as well. So where this Dodgers rotation has been iffy in a number of different spots due to health or poor performance, if they can get him to lower his home run rate, the Barrios could really be a great number 3, number 4 type starter for them when all their other starters are healthy. So Barrios, only 30 years old. I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. I think the home runs are still his biggest bugaboo. Other than that, if he's able to limit those, say he's able to cut those home runs down by, say, 10 in a season, I think we're talking about a perennial Cy Young candidate. That's how good a stuff he has. But again, -39 because of that salary and because of those home runs. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a 2-for-1 action. Let's go ahead and do Barrios. Mainly because the Dodgers can afford him. You don't have to eat any money really if you're the Blue Jays unless you really want to. For the Dodgers, who's your biggest negative surplus value guy? Taylor, he's got 1 year left on his deal. Writing is on the wall for Taylor. Really doesn't have a spot on this roster right now. Yamamoto, I'm sorry, he's got great value still, even with the injuries. But let's go ahead and move Taylor out in this deal. James Paxton, the big maple going back to Toronto, might make some sense. Teoscar Hernandez, those kinds of things. I don't mind this trade. If the Blue Jays are in this one, though, I'm imagining they'd have to include, I don't know, say $20 million. Let's go ahead and say 25, just to count a nice round number. All right, so that's a pretty even trade, and then the reason why the Blue Jays would do it is they would be able to get a lower level prospect out of it. Round of 4, somewhere in there. Dodgers have a really deep farm system, so they could really go in any number of directions here. Maybe they go with a younger guy just to kind of see what they got. I could see that happening. Maddox Bruns, maybe. Noah Miller as a shortstop could make some sense. Munoz could make some sense. Any one of these guys really could fit the picture here as a prospect that they could hope on. We'll go ahead and go with the starting pitcher, Peyton Martin, just because the Blue Jays are going to need some starting pitching eventually with Barrios going out the door. That's a pretty good deal. Blue Jays are paying down $25 million of that deal. That means they're paying roughly, a third of that money left. They're also taking on Chris Martin's money. Money is almost a wash here. Barrios and Martin, kind of the talent going back the other way each way. I think that's a pretty decent offer there. Let's go ahead and validate this trade, post it, and then we're going to do a quick one with Anderson as well. I mean, it's the Dodgers. We got to do 2 for our fans out in LA. Let's do a quick one here. Team 1, Dodgers. And this one, we're going to do the Angels. Value. Negative 1.7. I think that value is going to change because of how good he has been this year. I would not buy that at all. Okay. Let's say the Angels decide to eat, say, $12 million of that deal. Basically buying a prospect from the Dodgers. Okay, 10.3. What could the Dodgers give up for Anderson? I think this would be like Christmas came early for them if they got this type of a sweetheart deal. But I think Anderson's value is just that much higher. A guy like Vargas makes some sense as far as a shortstop because of how young he is. An older starting pitching prospect and Ryan could make some sense. Quintero, the outfielder, makes a little bit of sense here. Let's go with, they already have Ohapi. I don't think they're going to want to go Cartaya. Let's go ahead and go George. And let's go Hurt. Now the value, we're still going to be a little bit off here. We're about 3.4 off. So who could the Angels get? Or who could the Angels give up in addition to that as well? Looking around 3 and change. Somebody who could help them in a run here. Joyce as a reliever makes some sense. But I think Estevez for the bullpen would be the get. I still think this is way lopsided for the Dodgers here. I think that the baseball trade values has the Tyler Anderson value way lower than what it actually is on the market. I would expect this to be at least another 5 positive for Tyler Anderson, and so then the Angels could add at least one more prospect here just to kind of round out their package. But we'll just stick with what the package is now. Validate, post. I'm going to put a comment at the bottom of this as well. There we go. So that's the package that we just talked about. Submit. Alrighty, so we're going to do one more here real quick. Let's go for the Diamondbacks. See what people are clamoring for. Probably going to lean more towards a reliever for them or a back-end bat, something like that. Lorenzen would make some sense. Estevez would be a nice piece. Okay, I already know what I'm going to do for the Diamondbacks. I'm going to get them off of the Jordan Montgomery deal. Okay? Because that's probably the one bugaboo tying up their finances right now, especially for next year. Let's go down to the Rangers. Negative value is only 13.9 for Montgomery. Makes some sense since it's only been a few months. Let's go ahead and throw him back to the Rangers. Now, say the Diamondbacks want to get a starter in return just to kind of take the place of what they had hoped Montgomery would do. I think the Rangers would probably do this trade in a heartbeat right now. If I can get it to load. Dane Dunning. Where are you? There he is. They've lowered Michael Lorenzen's value a little bit due to a rough struggle with the strike zone anyway, but his ability to keep runners off the base is better than it ever has been in his career. The one issue for him is the walks. Usually it's the hits that give him trouble. He's usually not a big strikeout guy. That's really changed this year and really kind of changed his mix up. So let's look at what the trade looks like just with the principles involved. Montgomery, negative 13.9. Lorenzen going back the other way. Now, Texas obviously is not going to eat the deal this year. They have to get the Diamondbacks to take that money. So looking at the Diamondbacks, they're going to have to eat whatever's left of that deal. Let me look at his value. 35.5. He's got 20, 21, 22 invested next year. That means he's got roughly about 13.9 this year left on that deal. So let's go ahead and do 14 cash. We'll do 13.9. We'll make it even. 13.9 going to the Rangers. Basically, he's a free player for the Rangers this year, and then he's off the books for the Diamondbacks next year. He's on the books for the Rangers next year at roughly $20+ million. Value coming in for the Rangers right now, a net of 0. Value going out, 1.6. So the Diamondbacks would probably have to include a piece here. Let's look at the Major League roster and just look at the bullpen arms. They're not going to give up a guy like Sewald or anything like that, but the Rangers would love a reliever. I'm just not sure there is one that they could really go for here. Nelson, I don't think any of those guys move the needle for him. All right. We're looking for around a 1 and change trade value here. 16-year-old outfielder. That makes some sense. Rangers love those type of players. Those types of lottery tickets. And a shortstop. Low-level options. Mainly, though, for the Rangers, they get Montgomery back in their stable while the Diamondbacks get off of the money for Montgomery next year. It only cost them a couple of low-level prospects. Love this deal for both teams. Let's go ahead and validate it and post it. Huh? Relation of players associated with the entity do not exist. What? Radney, Rodriguez, Montgomery, and Cash. Let me just refresh this page and just see if it's an issue with the site for a second. Rangers and Diamondbacks. Go away. Alright. Lorenzen to the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks give up Montgomery. Rodriguez. Woo. They give up Radney. And they give up the Cash. Maybe it's the 13.9. We'll just do 14.0 just to make it a nice round number. Maybe that was what the issue was. Validate. Post. It still says it doesn't like it. Huh. Wonder if I take out Rodriguez if it'll allow it. There we go. Rodriguez. Let me go ahead and put this up first. Added to deal as well, but site wasn't working. Had internal errors. Good enough. Starting pitcher, 0.5 value. He was what, 17, 19 years old, something like that. There we go. Submit. Okay. Last deal we're going to make here is going to be for the San Diego Padres. They're mainly going to be looking for a reliever. We're just going to finish up our series on the NL Contenders side real quick, and then we're going to get into the news of the day, and the biggest, or kind of the focus of our discussion this evening is what a perfect trade deadline is going to look like here for one ball club in particular. All right, so the Padres backup catcher, starting pitcher, Robert, they're kind of all over the map, just a little bit of a spray chart here. Estevez, Ward could make some sense. Let's see here. Crochet, no. I don't see anything here yet that makes some sense. This one does. Diaz and Quantrill and Beeks in exchange for 3 lower-level minor leaguers. Possible Bassett, Let's see here. Okay. I think I know where I'm going to go with for the Padres here. We're going to look at... Let's get the Padres in here first. You guys are going to be a little bit surprised by who I picked for the team. And that's going to be the Tampa Bay Rays. They have a plethora of relievers that they could deal here at the deadline. And that's kind of right where I'm going here for the Padres. They need some relief arms, shorten the game for those starters that while they are really good starting pitchers when they're on their A game, they have a tendency to lose their effectiveness 6th and 7th inning on, so they need to add a couple of arms back there to lengthen out this bullpen. All right. Fairbanks is the first piece I'm going to add here for the Padres, and Adam is the second. Two pieces, roughly worth what, 19.3? What could the Padres do here as far as a trade value? I think they could go the starting pitcher route, Estrada. 11.9 there. He's your headliner of the package going back. And then you're probably going to be looking a couple of lower level guys. Probably in this range here. Pauly makes some sense. Brito, Rosario, Morejon. Let's go with Rojas, the shortstop, since you already have that position locked up for a while. And let's go with Pauly here to give him some depth behind Paredes if they decide to move him. Let's validate the trade. It's a minor overpay. I would agree with that one. We could probably get Rojas out of here. That's a pretty decent deal. You're getting a decent starting pitcher prospect. Pauly is another one. A decent player for you guys. I'm just not sure that's enough to convince the Rays to do this deal. And so if I'm them, I think you have to include Rojas here. Let's go ahead and do it again. Post it to the trade board. There we go. Can't tell you how many times I've done that. Alrighty, so if you guys were wondering what that trade ultimately looked like, 2 relievers, 30 plus going to the Rays, couple years of control, or from the Rays to the Padres, couple years of control there, in exchange for a starter who has 4+ years of control, another player who's got 5+, and then a guy they can hope and dream on at shortstop, especially with the future of Wander Franco completely dismantling their plans going forward. But you look at the way this trade looks for the Padres, this really shortens the game for them. They really then have 3 or 4 arms that they can trust in a tight game, in a postseason series, that they're not worried about whether or not they can handle that situation. All 4 of them should be able to. So, not a bad deal there. Alrighty. So, let me get this flip back over. So I told you guys off the top I wanted to kind of go over the latest news of the day. We'll do that really quick now. And then we'll get into what a perfect trade deadline looks like for one of the contenders on the American League side. We'll do one team every single day the rest of the week. We'll be earlier start time tomorrow. We'll get off work a little earlier. So we should be live probably around the 8 o'clock hour for you guys tomorrow. Probably do a little bit longer of a live. We might even do 2 teams on the American League side. But let's look at the standings real quick. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at the American League. What does a perfect trade deadline look like for one of these contenders? The Orioles, the Yankees, Red Sox to a certain extent. They currently hold a wild card spot. Guardians, Twins, Royals to a certain extent. They're 2 back in the wild card. Mariners, Astros, and Rangers in the AL West. I know you guys are, realize that I'm a Rangers fan, but we're going to hold off on doing the Rangers today. I want to focus on another team. Another team in the AL West, and that's the Seattle Mariners. Now, Seattle, they have to add a bat as far as I'm concerned. They need somebody to come in there that's going to make a significant difference for them. Pipe dream for them is going to be a big-time bat, middle-of-the-order player like Juan Soto would have been this offseason, or a Shohei Ohtani. Likely not going to happen. The next tier down is probably still pretty much a pipe dream, but if you overwhelm the team, you might be able to get him. Isaac Paredes, Randy Rosarena, kind of a package deal from the Rays. Really let you wish upon those two and see what you can get in that lineup. maybe you even get Yandy Diaz out of there, you would have to give up significant pieces to the Rays to be able to get it done. The thing is, the Mariners, with Jerry Dipoto, Trader Jerry at the top, are prone to make those types of moves. He's not afraid of what a prospect might become. He wants to continue to build his team in the best way he can. And so I think he might be willing to give up with the pieces to add the bats necessary to make that Mariners team a legitimate threat in that AL West. Again, I told you guys I'm a Ranger fan. The one team I'm worried least about out of those two, between the Mariners and Astros right now, is the Seattle Mariners. I don't care that they have Kirby. I don't care that they have Gilbert. I don't care that they have Castillo. I don't care about any of that. They don't have enough offense to be able to pose a threat when you're on your A game if you're the Astros or the Rangers. And so, to me, they're the third best team out of those three right now. If they're going to have a perfect trade deadline and make a run to the World Series, a la the Rangers last year or the Astros in previous years, they need to add to that lineup. They need to add to that bullpen a little bit as well. Third best rotation, I believe, in the majors this year. 12th best bullpen. They could use another arm back there. So, we're going to touch on what a trade deadline could look like here for them. We'll go over to the trade simulator. I just mentioned Isaac Paredes. I know they made the acquisition of Polanco from the Twins, but he can play all over the diamond, first base, second base, a little bit of corner outfield, maybe some DH. Gives you some flexibility. Paredes, though, would be a difference maker for that lineup. It would cost a whole lot. They're going to probably have to give up a starter or two, and they're really going to have to do so anyway because the Rays are really going to demand a starter in return for those guys. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's look at the Mariners and the Rays. All right, so for the Rays, let's start there because that's the easy one. Surplus value, Paredes, 50 right now. That's significant value. 3 years left on his deal after this year. And the one reason why I think this trade could happen is because we just saw these two teams come together on a trade not too long ago as well. Caminero was on the Mariners last year. Taj Bradley, he's not going anywhere, etc., etc. There's not too many other pieces that would have significant interest from the Mariners. You're looking at offensive players here more than anything else. Arozarena is in a down year, but they have had significant interest in him in the past. Brendan Lau could make some sense. Yandy Diaz, I think, would be the perfect first baseman for them. On-base percentage guy. They really don't have anybody who fits that mold that plays first base for them. We're going to put in Yandy Diaz. That's a significant trade. You're talking about roughly 60 points in value. You're talking about two players who probably slot in at the top of your lineup in your number 1 spot and probably your number 3 spot right now with Julio Rodriguez sandwiched in there at their number 2. It allows Crawford to probably move down into that number 9 spot, kind of allow that lineup to get a little bit deeper. Gives them a lot more options anyway. Now, the one thing you have to wonder about is what it does for guys like Rayleigh, France, Garver, players who are already taking up some of those at-bats at those spots. Polanco, as I mentioned, could move off a third and go play second, etc. Bounce all over the diamond for you. But what kind of return would the Mariners have to give up? Now, remember, we're talking about 60 roughly going to the Mariners. So you're going to have at least 60 going back the other way. You're not going to give up Kirby in this deal. You're not going to give up Gilbert. I think Gilbert could have been had before the season. At this point, I think they're pretty much solidified in Gilbert being there through the entirety of his current deal. I don't think you give up Emerson here. Wu, I think, is probably the most likely guy that could move here, along with Bryce Miller, depending on which player the teams like better. We're going to go ahead and say, for our purposes, they like Brian Wu. He's the headliner of this package. All right, now, they could go for another bat here in Montez. I think they would want to go more for younger guys who could make an impact at the major league level relatively soon. Ford has some significant value. He could be the second headliner of this deal if they decide to go that route. Let's look at first base first. I want to see what France's value is. Next to nothing, 1.4. He could be the piece that goes the other way as far as a lineup matching piece for the Rays Ty France going out, 30 years old. Not going to command a huge salary here. I like it. Okay. So we got the principals. Now what could we round out this trade with? We're going to go with the minors here. You're going to want somebody to hope and dream upon. We're going to go with Arroyo because, again, Franco. That gets us to 55. We're relatively close. At this point, then, I think they drop all the way down here. Pete would be another one I think they could do, but I don't think you get both Arroyo and Pete from the Mariners. I think you get one or the other. Aiden Smith as an outfielder makes some sense. Young. And then Martinez here just to kind of round out the package. Another young guy. All right, so there's the trade. Paredes and Diaz for Wu, France, Arroyo, Smith, and Martinez. Arroyo, 13.2. What was Pete's value here? 6.4. Let's go ahead and take him out. I think they would rather have Pete since he's a year younger. And it drops the value a little bit to where you could add another piece to this trade. Let's go with an aging prospect here in Joyce. Rays do great with those types of players. And then another young guy in Ford. Can only trade 6 players. Not bad. Let's go ahead and validate this trade. They're a little light on value. Take Pete out. Let's put Arroyo back in here. Validate this one. Post. Alright, let's see what this trade ultimately looks like for you guys. Diaz Paredes. Your headlining piece is Brian Wu at the major league level. Insert into that starting rotation. Ty France takes over at first base. And then you're getting a plethora of young players. Your first young player in the minors, Michael Arroyo, taking over at shortstop eventually probably for Franco. Getting another young piece as far as a starter in Martinez. Getting a couple of position players as well. Not bad, and Joyce could be the type of starter that the Rays really turn something out of Jimmy Joyce. Not a bad value trade here. Upside Sports Network. Mariners Dream Deadline. There we go. Mariners need to add to that lineup. This trade certainly does that. They could tinker around the edges here with the bullpen, Finnegan, etc. Some lower level reliever that could come in and kind of build out that bullpen just a little bit would be kind of finishing off their bullpen. Now, the second part of this is what does it look like after the deadline? How does this trade set them up for the rest of the season? Do they ultimately win the division? Do they win the World Series, etc.? If they made this trade, which I don't think they will, but this would be the perfect trade for them. Solves their corner infield issues and allows them to play other players in their more natural positions in the outfield as well, putting Rayleigh pretty much in the outfield every day at this point. But Paredes could give you some at-bats out there as well, but I think he's your everyday third baseman, and he's got 3 years left of control. For Diaz, he's 32 right now, a high on-base percentage guy. They really struggle with that, and he really solves those issues for them immediately. I think Diaz probably goes into your top 1 or 2. I think Rodriguez is up there as well. Paredes is your 3, and then you sort out your lineup thereafter with Cal Raleigh, etc. If they don't want to take back Ty France in this trade for the Rays, you just keep France, plug him in there at DH, and let him switch with Garver every so often. But I really like this trade for the Mariners. For the Rays, does this trade really dot the I, cross the T, all those kinds of things for them? It does get them a premium starter in a trade. It does get them some decent options as far as shortstops in the future. It does give them a plethora of talent of which to grow from. Is this enough, though, for having two of your pieces land in one spot, or would you be better off splitting them up and maximizing their value? Maximizing their value is probably the name of the game here if they decide to trade one or both of these guys. I don't think they would do this type of a trade unless there was just one player they had to have, like a Brian Wu. If they're just like, hey, this guy is just, if we get him in our building, he could be the next great such and such. If they view a player like that, then maybe, and only then, do they decide that they might want to go down the path of packaging them together. If not, they would be best suited separating them, maximizing their value individually, rather than combining them and putting them together. Less of a return is expected if you do it that way. But let us know in the comments section what you think about this for the Rays. And what do you think this does for the Mariners? Now, for the Mariners, does this get them the division? If they made this trade and the Rangers ultimately got healthy and the Astros added a first baseman, would this get the Mariners the division? I think they would be right there for it. Before this trade, I would say the Mariners are clearly the third best team in this division because of how poorly that offense is performing this year. And they need to get something going out of that Mariners offense. Pitching staff, they look great. Bullpen, they could use an arm. But do they win the division? I would say no at this point. Even with this trade, I think they're right on the cusp. I think they would have to add at least a bullpen arm at that point. Then I could consider them a favorite to win the division. Of course, this is all subject to change, but the way things currently stand, if they got this deal done, Rangers pretty much stand pat, Astros pretty much stand pat. I could see the Mariners ultimately winning this division. But Paredes and Diaz, like I said, I don't think they'll go together. But this would be the perfect scenario for the Mariners to try to win the series this year. Do they win the series if they get those two guys? I don't think so. I do think they ultimately get in the playoffs and just fall short. But appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Make sure you guys join us again tomorrow night. We'll probably be live with you guys around 8-ish during the All-Star game. Probably comment on it a little bit and get into some more trade deadline chat as well. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys see us then. Follow us over on X at UpsideSN. Hit that like on the video if you haven't already. Subscribe. We really appreciate those of you who have joined us over the last couple weeks, and especially those of you who have been with us since our very beginning. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Y'all have a good one.